I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego is trying to keep experienced police officers on the force, but it's not working.
1 in 5 San Diego children are living in poverty. I'm Amita Sharma. We'll have a look at the report from the U.S. Census Bureau. And this weekend, San Diegans will join people around the world in climate change demonstrations. We'll have a preview and a look at the city's climate action plan.
And the nation's newest citizens are not jumping to the old political parties. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. The San Diego Police Department's ongoing challenge to keep its officers from leaving isn't getting any easier. Chief Shelley Zimmerman gave an update on the situation to a city council committee today. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Mento brings us the highlights. Taryn, what new information did we learn out of this meeting?
Since the beginning of July, the department has lost 35 officers. The attrition rate is 14 officers per month. Now, that's slightly lower than what was reported by the city's independent budget analyst last week, but still, it's the highest rate seen in recent years. Now, the committee meeting gave San Diegans a chance to weigh in. What did the public have to say about it? At least half a dozen speakers urged the council members to quickly address the situation, many suggesting increasing officers' pay. One notable speaker today was Jeff Jordan, the vice president of the Police Officers Association. He said the council has known for a long time the problem is compensation and said officers are tired of waiting for some action. And how did the council members react? The council acknowledged this problem is at the top of their priority list, but Councilman Mark Kersey said there's only so much money to go around. Right now, it looks like everyone's waiting until the outcome of a salary survey that will compare pay across the state. That's expected in October. Police union leaders said they're urging officers who are thinking of leaving to wait until it's released and council has a chance to respond. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Mento. Thanks, Taryn. Hundreds of cab company owners and taxi drivers filled city council chambers today, along with 3 overflow rooms at City Hall. At issue was a proposal to lift the cap on the number of taxi permits in the city. Drivers want more so they can get out from underneath burdensome contracts and start their own cab businesses. But cab companies have dropped hundreds of thousands of dollars to enter the existing market, and they want those investments protected.
I work hard, I invest, and I'm here now. So now you're taking the business from me. I don't think I appreciate that. So it's not fair. Please think twice.
It's a permit. It's not a stock. It's not a bond. It's not a piece of property. In fact, the permit is owned by the city.
Councilwoman Marty Emerald watched the meeting from home where she's recuperating from surgery for breast cancer. She's led the effort to lift that cap, saying that it would improve conditions for drivers and make the cab industry more competitive against Uber and Lyft, the ride-sharing companies. The proposal remains in committee and would need full council approval. The Border Patrol will start testing body cameras, trying to improve accountability and transparency. Border agents have been accused of misconduct and using excessive force in the past. Starting next month, a variety of cameras will be tested at the Border Patrol Academy in New Mexico. There is no word on how soon the cameras might be rolled out to about 21,000 agents in the field, but the Border Agents Union has yet to sign off on the plan. Union leaders say that cameras could make agents hesitate when their lives are in danger. Customs and Border Protection says it will also change how it investigates misconduct claims in an effort to speed that process up. This was arraignment day for local lawmaker Ben Hueso on 2 misdemeanor counts of drunken driving, but only the senator's lawyer appeared in court in Sacramento. The case was continued until November 6th, 2 days after Election Day. Hueso is running for re-election. Police in Northern California have arrested a suspected arsonist in connection with a huge fire east of Sacramento. About 12,000 homes are threatened, most of them in the community of Pollock Pines. The fire nearly tripled in size overnight, growing to 111 square miles. Investigators say they've charged 37-year-old Wayne Huntsman with starting the fire on Saturday, but they're not saying why at this point. San Diego County is reporting its first cases of the enterovirus. It's a respiratory illness that's been affecting children across the country. 4 children were treated for it at Rady's Children's Hospital earlier this month. They're all recovering. The health department says they're running tests to see if other patients also have the enterovirus. For most patients, the virus is no more than a serious common cold, no more serious than a common cold, but it can be more severe for some, especially for people with asthma. Some startling data says 1 in 5 San Diego children are living in poverty. Amitha Sharma takes a look at who else is struggling to make ends meet.
Economists are touting California's comeback from the 2008 recession, but large swaths of people have been left behind. More people in the city of San Diego slipped into poverty last year, including 22% of the city's children, according to new census data. Peter Brownell, research director of the Center on Policy Initiatives, joins me now. Peter, the latest census figures show that poverty inched upward to 15.8%, and that San Diegans, 209,000 San Diegans, including 64,000 children, are now living below federal poverty level. Why is the poverty rate going up?
Well, the reality is, as you mentioned, the economy has recovered somewhat. The regional GDP is back up, above where it was before, when the recession started. But the poverty and income figures have leveled off. And really what we're seeing is, although people have started to get back to work, we've been adding jobs that were lost, but we've replaced a lot of good, well-paying middle-class jobs with service sector jobs that pay poverty-level wages.
And what are some of those poverty-level wages?
Well, the federal poverty level for a single adult is a little under $12,000 a year. So obviously, many jobs in the restaurant industry and the hotel industry that pay at or near minimum wage produce wages that a single adult or certainly someone supporting children would be below the poverty level.
So other cities in the county of San Diego, like El Cajon, Escondido, Vista, and Oceanside, also saw their poverty rates go up. And El Cajon is almost at 30%, Escondido 20%, Vista and Oceanside at nearly 17%. Is the story the same there in terms of low-paying jobs?
I think there's a slightly different industry mix. I haven't done a lot of detailed analysis of what's going on in each of the cities. Our report really focuses on the city of San Diego. I think some cities may face, the same situation as the city of San Diego. Others may be struggling to even reduce their unemployment rates.
Well, let's talk about the federal poverty line. So the census data is based on that federal poverty rate. How realistic is that standard for a city like San Diego, where the cost of living is quite high?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the federal poverty level for a single adult is a little under $12,000 a year. That gives you $1,000 a month to live on. You really, you can't rent an apartment for that much, or or if you did, you wouldn't have anything left over. So really. It's not a realistic standard. In some of our other publications, we look more realistically at the budget. But it's a federal level number that's produced for the whole country and doesn't really reflect the situation faced here. So, in fact, the situation is pretty dire for the folks who are below the federal poverty level, and even for folks that are considerably above it.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask you. So what's the true state of economic hardship for people here in San Diego?
We've produced another report that was based on last year's census data, which tried to look at a more realistic budget. And what we found there was that 38% of households were living below the standard that they need to really live fully self-sufficiently. So to not rely on any government aid, to not rely on aid from family or churches or nonprofit organizations.
So as you know, San Diego, the city of San Diego has approved a higher minimum wage for this area. It will go to $11.50 an hour by 2017. As you also know, there's an effort now to undo that, to put the issue to a vote. What does this report, what does the census data do in terms of creating a context for the minimum wage debate?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we see here is that 41% of the people who are below the poverty level in the city of San Diego are people who are employed. So that policy, were it to overcome the challenges that you've mentioned and were to be implemented, that's a policy that could make a huge difference in those, not quite half, but 41% of the folks that are below poverty would be boosted up by if they were to receive a higher wage, because they are folks that are out there working hard trying to make ends meet.
And what about the visual signs of these poverty rates? How are they manifesting themselves?
That's a good question. I think, I don't necessarily know that I have any visuals, but we certainly hear it when we talk to folks around things like, doubling up on housing, folks that are living, many generations in a house, not because that's their choice, but because they really can't afford it, or folks that are skipping meals, parents that are skipping meals themselves so that they'll be able to feed their children.
Peter Brownell, thanks so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
A task force looking into troubles at UC San Diego's Sun God Festival says the school needs to keep limiting it to students only, but also do more to punish those who don't behave at that springtime event. The music festival has become known for the consumption of drugs and alcohol, and a student did die after the last one. The task force report recommends ongoing drug and alcohol education. The university is considering the future of the event. The Home Depot says it has eliminated damaging computer software that compromised 56 million transactions at its U.S. and Canadian networks. The damaging software was active between April and September, making their data breach the second largest on record. The biggest affected some 90 million transactions at TJX company stores. A breach at Target stores compromised 40 million credit and debit cards. The Atlanta-based home improvement retailer says it has completed a major payment security project that improves the security of their data in U.S. stores. Now, Home Depot says no debit PIN numbers were compromised. San Diego neuroscientists have discovered an unusual connection in the brain associated with depression. Now, most brain connections perform a single role. Either they excite part of the brain or they calm it down, on and off switch. But UC San Diego's Stephen Chabel discovered a connection playing two roles, both exciting and calming down a part of the brain associated with disappointment. When those two roles are not in balance, depression can take hold. Chabel says finding a way to regulate that chemical balance could lead to more targeted drugs.
Perhaps you would have an antidepressant which is more selective for helping people's motivation and doesn't have some of the side effects that are common with antidepressants.
The study was published today in the journal Science. A growing number of San Diego voters are choosing not to join the two major political parties, Republicans or Democrats. KPBS reporter Jill Replogle and video journalist Nick McVicker looked at this trend among new citizens. They found a third party growing faster than all the rest.
Here at Golden Hall in downtown San Diego, nearly 500 people from 63 different countries are becoming U.S. citizens. The Registrar of Voters hopes that after they take their oath, they'll sign up to vote.
We have an election in November 4th. Don't forget to get your voter registration cards.
Along with their name and driver license number, new voters will be asked to check the box next to the political party they prefer, or not.
We get a lot of questions about, how do I sign up to be a nonpartisan or independent?
The number of voters who decline to state a political party is rapidly approaching that of Republicans and Democrats in San Diego. But the third largest political party in the county, and one that's growing fast, is the American Independent Party. 3.4% of all San Diego voters are registered as American independents, and it's popular among new citizens. The party was founded in 1967 to support presidential candidate George Wallace. Wallace is best known for his support of states' rights and a segregated South.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
The American Independent Party has since dropped segregation from its platform. It now calls for limited government and strict control of our borders. The party is against gay marriage and abortion. It could be that all of the party's recent growth comes from California voters who are genuinely attracted by its conservative platform. But among those who register new voters, there's a different theory. Many are just confused by the party name, they say. Carmen Lopez says that's especially true among newly naturalized citizens, especially those from Asian countries.
American Independent, does that mean we're independent, but actually it is a party? I think, they're just very proud. They want to be part of the American, and they seem to hone in on that name.
It's not just new citizens who make the mistake. Notable Californians who have said they accidentally signed up as American independents include the wife of Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, San Diego County Supervisor Dave Roberts, and a certain colleague of mine here at KPBS. She was just 18 at the time. There's even a web page dedicated to, they say, setting the record straight. Party execs admit there may be some confusion.
Yes, there are some such confused people, but every time people have tried to point this out, the attention drawn to the American Independent Party has resulted in an increase in our registration. Many Republicans, a handful of libertarians, and many independents, that is, no party, would really find a much happier home in the American Independent Party.
Employees of the registrar's office just try to make sure new citizen voters know what they're signing up for. Carmen Lopez says they hit all the new citizen ceremonies. Today, bilingual employees offer help in Spanish, Tagalog, and Mandarin. Jason Wu from the registrar's office talks through the form with Jennifer Walker, a new citizen originally from Taiwan. I ask her if she signed up for a political party.
No preference.
No preference.
No preference. She hasn't familiar with all the parties, so she decided with no preference, no party preference at this time.
Okay. And do you plan to vote in November?
Yes, I will. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm American citizen.
Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
Climate change is going to be front and center this weekend as worldwide demonstrations get underway. Amita Sharma tells us how San Diegans are involved in the People's Climate March.
Against the backdrop of heat waves, drought, and springtime wildfires, San Diegans are expected to rally Sunday just ahead of the UN's Climate Change Summit next week. The demonstration also coincides with the San Diego City Council's consideration of a climate action plan. City Council President Todd Gloria is in studio along with Masada Dissenhouse, co-founder of San Diego 350, a volunteer group concerned about climate change. Masada, your group is organizing Sunday's rally. What do you hope to accomplish, and what kind of turnout are you expecting?
So, first of all, San Diego is excited to be one of over 2,000 sites around the world that will be participating in the People's Climate March, with the focus in New York at the Climate Summit. And we're hoping to really make the message heard that people around the world and here in San Diego want to see policies put in place that will address climate change. And we're going to be talking about that global issue as well as local issues like the Climate Action Plan, as you mentioned.
Okay, and do you expect a large turnout?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we expect a large turnout, at least several hundred people here in San Diego, maybe 1,000. It's hard to tell, but around the world we will be participating with probably millions of people. In New York, they're expecting hundreds of thousands of people.
Council President Gloria, so on Monday the City Council is set to take up its climate action plan. What's included in the plan, and what are the targets?
Well, the resolution, this is not the full plan, but it's a resolution communicating our expectations to the mayor, is very aggressive. We want to be a leader when it comes to global climate change, and so this envisions moving to 100% renewable power for the city of San Diego by 2035, a drastic reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions, and really the prioritization of public transit, of biking and walking. There's a lot in the plan, all of it adding up to really, again, allowing us to say with confidence that we're a leader on climate change.
So I know that there is some pushback from realtors, local businesses. Does that shock you? Does that surprise you at this point, given the evidence that we're seeing around us? I mean, we've had heat waves, we've had spring wildfires, we're expecting more wildfires. What's your response to that pushback?
In my line of work, there's always folks who are going to oppose things, and I think that certainly when your self-interest or your money is at risk, people push back. But in this particular case, I think it's relatively short-sighted. The fact of the matter is the costs of climate change are starting to add up, whether that's in the wildfires, homeowners insurance, all kinds of different ways that this is really socking it to San Diegans, and that's why I think this is actually going to be good, not just for our environment, but for our economy, and I think that's why you're going to see strong support from the Council for the climate plan.
So he says that there's going to be strong support from the Council for this climate plan. What is your group doing to ensure that that actually happens?
Well, we've been following the Climate Action Plan since it first started about 3 years ago. We have people comment on the Climate Action Plan and contact our council people to let them know that this is an area of concern for us, and just try to get the word out that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and that the council people need to be educated and to take action on it.
So is your group meeting, though, with local businesses to see if there's some common ground, some middle ground there?
Well, we're an all-volunteer group, and we focus on getting people to take action with their own elected leaders. We have done some work with businesses and also some with unions. And other segments of society on this, and we also do a lot of presentations to people to educate them about the issues. So yeah, we do some of that, but mostly we reach out to our elected officials.
So what Masada was saying earlier was that San Diego is part of this global effort of people to make their voices heard to the UN as it convenes for this climate summit. So there seems to be a groundswell of support now, unlike what it's been like in the past. Do you feel that as the public begins to demand change from its elected representatives, that this whole activism to fight back on climate change is going mainstream?
Oh, absolutely. This is mainstream. I don't think there's any denying that this is happening, and for those that do, I think they're ostracized, probably quite rightfully. Something is happening, and that we must respond. The Climate Action Plan and efforts like the March on Sunday are really responses to that. And I think that this will have broad bipartisan support because people know something is going on here. And I think particularly in San Diego, where we're so known for our climate and for our natural resources, we have a special responsibility to act. Our environment is what gives us our quality of life. It's what sets us apart. And I think that, again, is why you see such strong groundswell of support for protecting our environment.
Okay, we're going to close it there. Councilman Gloria, Masada, thanks so much for coming on the program. We'll have more information on this on our website.
Thank you.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. Ukraine's president travels to Washington to meet with President Obama at the White House. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
The city of Carlsbad, not exactly unpaving paradise, but it has turned a parking lot into a new pop-up plaza. Workmen have painted over the parking spaces with earth tones and installed tables and chairs. It's part of a bigger plan to make downtown Carlsbad more pedestrian friendly and to lure people out of their cars. Now, the pop-up plaza will only last a week before reverting to its original function as a parking lot. There is a treasure hunt underway in the waters off San Francisco. Federal researchers are exploring more than a dozen underwater sites. They're looking for shipwrecks dating back to the gold rush era. The AP's Robert Bumstead shows us what's going on.
Steaming off the coast of San Francisco toward the picturesque Farallones Islands, federal researchers from NOAA are on the hunt for treasure. A graveyard of sunken ships dating back at least 150 years, littering the floor of the Gulf of the Farallones.
And it's not just a graveyard, it's a museum, if you will. It's a big museum that speaks to the growth of the coast.
James Delgado and a team of researchers have been tasked with finding these wrecks. Heavy fog and strong winds got the better of many vessels heading in and out of the San Francisco Bay. More than 300 ships sit at the bottom.
Every one of these accidents, every one of these sinkings has its own dramatic story to tell. And in many cases, while the participants have long since passed away, questions remain. There are still mysteries left to be solved.
Remote-controlled underwater cameras give an up-close look at the wrecks.
You see the plate buckling and the damage here.
On this day, the team made a new discovery. The SS Selja, a 380-foot cargo ship that sank in 1910, transporting goods from China to San Francisco when it hit a Chinese ship. 2 crew members were lost.
And we were actually quite surprised. It was a catastrophic ending for Selja. Today we saw the hull inverted, upside down, twisted.
Hundreds more wrecks lie at the bottom of these waters. Plenty more work ahead to document them and preserve their memory for future generations. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
So nice to have our cooler Mediterranean weather back, and it's going to be staying cool for the next couple of days. Look at this, 77 degrees across the board for the coast. Now, there is still a beach hazard statement in effect through the evening. That's a warning about strong rip currents. If you move into the inland valleys, look for lows through Sunday with morning clouds and afternoon clearing. Mid to upper 70s up in the mountains with clear skies expected there. And as we would expect, desert temperatures around 100 degrees through the weekend. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a great evening.